And we're live. Hello and welcome to the 7th episode of Game Theory Gang. I'm your host, Matty Allen, with co-host ChrispyMan of HEXFire.io and Brisology of Brisology on Twitter and YouTube. And our special guest tonight is Top Gun Hexadian. Welcome.
Thank you for having me on. It's a privilege and a pleasure if I'm not too tongue-tied.
Yeah. Well, so, we came across your coverage of PulseX. And as some of you may have known from the stream last week, I surprised myself by becoming extremely bullish on PulseX. And just to kick things off here, and we're going to get into Top Gun's, we're going to get into his spreadsheet. He's got a calculator where he's done a bunch of math. I called it moon math and he corrected me that basically, nope, it's just calculating the buy and burn, which I love. I love the game theory there. But just to brush up for those of you who like to watch, more visual, like a list, here's the list of like the things that I said I was so excited about last week when it comes to, I'm falling with PulseX, and it's got, in my opinion, now this is all up for debate. It's got the highest RH network effects. In terms of VC dumpers, somebody corrected me, said, 5% owned by Rackham's equity firm or whatever. It's like actually traded on the stock market, if some people don't know. With 95% certainty, I would say that there are not VC dumpers. I would say that that there are no Ethereum LP dumpers like in PLS. After Pulse Chain, like after the sacrifice of Pulse Chain, Hex OGs had less coins to sack in some cases. It's deflationary. The fees go to buy and burn. Okay, now here's one I want to get your guys' feedback on. You need PLSX to trade PRC20s. A lot of people challenged me on that point, and the deep understanding that I'm trying to communicate here is that maybe you don't, so like for Pulse Chain or for Ethereum, like you need the native token to do a transaction. Well, when we're thinking of the buy and burn, it's the same effective type of tokenomics to say that you need PLSX as compared to how Uniswap works, where you pay your fee in whatever token you're swapping. And then that fee goes, in this case on PulseX, to buy and burn for PulseX. And so it's effectively like part of your trade went to, it is where part of your trade went to buy PLSX, right? And so that's what I mean by saying you need it. That was confusing to some people.
I would say it's a part of every transaction on PLSX.
It's built in. Yeah, it's built in that you have to buy it if you want to do a swap there. Like, and it's handled automatically. So that's pretty cool. That's a good reason to like it. And then a lot of people didn't understand that I was saying what this means is like, who knows? There might be incentives in Time Pays Me that are special for certain coins, and we don't know that yet. And then I said, it's theoretically possible to do what SHIB did. And SHIB is in the top 4 coins of all time performance in the shortest period. So lots to digest there, I guess.
Yeah. I'm liking PLSX more and more. The more I learn about it, the more I like it. I think it's going to be a great coin. And I think there's going to be not that much that's going to be able to compete with it, to tell you the truth. So,
long-term hold for me.
Yep.
I've definitely been bullish on it since the moment I found out about it.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, boy, I'll tell you, we just keep coming up with all sorts of problems for people to think about, don't we? They tell them the PulseX is great. PHEX is going to be great, or Hex on Pulse is going to be great. Pulse is going to be great. You're right back where you started. I don't know which one I want to go after, right? Which one do I want to stack more of?
So it's like,
All
every
three.
time we come here on Tuesdays, it feels like a month has gone by, even though it's only been a
Yeah.
week. And I make little notes throughout the week just so I can remember stuff. And it's like, just last week we got commas for PulseX. And it seemed a little comical at first, but then I kind of went to ethhex.com and I went to the uniswap.org and I looked at those guys. They don't even have commas on those platforms. Now they do have commas under the dollar amount, but not on the actual crypto coin. So if you type out 1,000 ETH, it just says it no commas, So I don't know. I think that's I don't know. It's a little thing to kind of drill down on, but ultimately it's kind of about user experience, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and so Sandip is asking, like, how can you get a 22,000x in 222 days? Well, the way that it's like only one coin has ever done that, SHIB, and the way that it did that is because everybody sold on a 10x. It's the same thing with HEX or with Bitcoin or anything. If everybody sells, then the price can run up even harder if there's more demand than supply.
So do you guys know that PLS is selling at a 20x right now? Have you guys heard about that yet? PLS
Yeah.
IOU?
Some
Oh,
some scam shit.
No,
I'd
not
stop short of that.
necessarily.
I'd stop short of saying it's a scam, but it's somebody putting up a contract where people can promise their pulse
So
for
it's
sale.
so
it's
I mean, we get
Jacob.
into RH products because we don't like middlemen. We like immutable contracts with no admin keys that don't require trusting somebody in the middle. And the PLSIOU contract is exactly a middleman. Please come through with your promise. Oh, there's admin keys. Oh, you can change the contract. It's not immutable. It's not RH style at all.
It's a big risk, but the guys launching it are trusted community members. I believe they're the same guys that launched BNBP and PulsePot. And basically they've put up 1 billion PLS of their own, and they found trusted users who will also supply that. And they're selling a PLS IOU at basically a 20x from the
Yeah,
SAC
that's
rate.
not real crypto. That
Yeah.
there's no such thing. There's no such thing as pulse coins yet. And anybody who's telling you, they need their head checked. They can lie down on my couch if they want.
Well, again, this
Um,
is an IOU.
yeah.
So
Well, we're not. But that's
I
not
remember in
what
the
we're in crypto
90s,
for.
there was some guy who found out it was legal and started selling plots of land on the moon. Not that he actually had the deeds or ownership, but they were essentially IOUs for acres of moonland.
Yep.
yeah, actually, some other company recently got in trouble for doing that with the Ireland land plots, where they're saying you can become a lord or a lady if you buy a plot of land in Ireland.
Yeah. Charles Ponzi, he had a stamp collection he was selling people in other countries, and he was making a lot of promises there too.
Well,
Um,
and a related topic to this, Maddie, not the IOU specifically, but Hex Daily Stats did an update. I don't know if you'd seen that. They've added Pulse Chain V3 to their page. I'll tell you, I took that as one of the most bullish signs ever to get that out in
ooh,
front of people. Because every time I
wow.
look at it and I see Hex at $5.25 USD, I go,
Right.
whoa, wait a minute. Now I know it's testnet. Trust me, I
Uh-huh.
know that it's testnet, but I do like that, and I also like that we're seeing some other prices show up there as well, like PulseX at 0.013. and Pulse at 0.332. Now, those obviously aren't going to last, right? We know they're going to change, but it's pretty bullish. If you want to start getting people to FOMOs, there you go.
Yeah.
I know.
Those.
I was looking at it. I was comparing my TShares to the testnet stuff. I was like, ooh, I can only hope.
Sounds good. Yeah, that's exciting because the price, it's an important ingredient in people getting excited, people participating.
Yeah, it's probably the most important ingredient, right? But yeah, it's right up there in the top 3 if it's not number 1. Between green candles and price, right?
We'll see very good price action on Pulse Chain. I'm fairly confident about it.
Yes, sir. Mr. Gunn, I agree with you.
So, and we get, we got plenty of time tonight to talk about Gensler getting dragged in front of Congress and all that good kind of stuff. But, we got our guests here, and yeah, I'd be happy to just dive right into, what was your method? What kind of things have you been plotting in your Excel spreadsheet? And what do you know?
All right. Well, I guess I'll try and run you through what it does, what my thinking was, how it works, how it started, and what it is now. So, I listened to. I got to figure out where to share my screen here. Where is that? Present. There we go. Share screen. All right. So. There we go.
Shout out to everybody in the chat. Hit the like and subscribe button if you're here to learn more about PulseX.
All right. So yeah, my thinking here was I listened to Richard Hart go on his streams before the PulseX sacrifice and even during it, and there between all the when moons and when Pulse chains was what ifs. And what if this happens? What if that happens? And what if everybody sells off 20%? You know what? I don't want to play the what if game, Richard said. And I went, I could. Yeah, what would happen? So I started making an Excel spreadsheet with a simple premise of a liquidity pool in Uniswap version 2 or in PulseX that's based off of X times Y equals K. Simple formula. So, okay, I can make a liquidity pool, and then all I do is make another box and call it a month later, and I can do additions and subtractions between those months and some other math that's required to balance K and all that fun stuff. So, okay, I can run an overtime model, and I can go, what does happen if 1.7 trillion tokens get sold? How does that affect the price? But then fundamentally with this, there are huge questions like how big is the liquidity pool going to end up? Where do you get the numbers for how much business and volume it's going to do for the buy and burn? So I calculated a lot of stuff, gathering numbers from K for K. He was really good for providing early numbers on PulseX and how it was going to be designed.
Shout out to K for K.
Yeah, so I started building this because I kind of wanted to help out his show, but I was so out of it and so new. Everyone's like, "Whoa, some weird guy. Maybe he's a vampire. Don't trust him right away." And I'm like, I get it. I appreciate it. Crypto Coffee actually. He's the one that put out my video and kind of got me started with my YouTube channel. So
nice.
Yeah, this thing developed into the crystal ball, as people call it. So. This is not financial advice. This is only a theory. And yes, the way I've designed it is to show what the buy and burn would do to the price if the market weren't buying or selling. But then, yes, the model does allow me to simulate sells and to simulate buys. So first off, I have to guess the liquidity pool. Now, I started with a setting of 1. That's the size of HEX. And then I started tracking testnet V2B, and that one, it got up to like, I forget, it just kept getting ridiculous and growing, like how much bigger it was, like 73 times the size. So I have no idea how big the liquidity pool really be, but let's make it something insane, because that makes it a tank. It makes it really hard to move. Okay. And then I base it off Uniswap, because it's basically the Uniswap model. So how much flow does Uniswap do every day is what I put through there. Now, how do I apply this to here? Well, Uniswap has about 1.5 million users. We had about 150K sacrifice. So 1% of Uniswap is really not bullish enough. 10%, I think, is a little more bullish to set that. So the way I have this is that in 1 year, we get to a full 150,000 people using PulseX at just 10%. That's not even at trying to match up to Uniswap in 1 year. So this is just at 10% right now.
Is that so that 10%, is that the number of users or is that the amount of volume?
Well, both. So ideally, like I kind of pegged it. I didn't take Metcalfe's law into effect tracking this. So I'm just using the base amount. So if it's like K for K will go on like $1 billion volume per day. Well, if we're talking 10% of what they do, that would be 100 million. So I just threw in the numbers for understanding what the user count could kind of look like.
Okay.
So at this point, this is just variably setting it to, okay, 10%. And then I put it at just 5% user growth year over year. So we're not talking about doubling the users. We're talking about year over year, the same as the day over day sacrifice rate increase. So
that seems very conservative.
Yeah, this is insanely conservative, because I want to show you what happens with those settings just as they are right there. So I mean, the end of a year, and that's where I put off some sell-offs. Like right in month 3, there's a sell-off for 100 billion tokens, and then oh yeah, I forgot to include the 20% sell-off because people missed their PulseX sacrifice or Pulse Chain sacrifice. So your $100 at the end of a year, only 70 in these kind of conservative numbers. But this forecast goes all the way to 5 years. And that's a 3.8x, but that goes to 10-year and 20-year. And in that, you can see I have another 1 trillion sell-off in year 5, in year 4, in year 3. And that kind of creates some effects with the graphs for price. Like, I'm just messing around here with numbers, so we can take these sell-offs out of here to start. Get rid of those. Boom. Boom.
It's a very impressive Excel spreadsheet.
Yeah, well, I've put a lot of work into this. So even year over year, when I do this 5% growth rate, I skew it over the 10 years using a Fibonacci sequence. It's kind of like, it's a little complicated to get into, but it creates an S curve for the adoption growth. So it's not just steady. Like this is the adoption S curve down here. So yeah, pull this over so you can kind of see how the math lets it work out a little bit. But the internet grew at 73% year over year adoption. So this is definitely way too low for this thing. Let's just crank it up even to 10% adoption year over year. And oh yeah, let's get that sell off out of here. So I mean, with an initial 20% sell off and no market buying, that tanks the price the first year pretty effectively. But by 5 years in, that $100, we're looking at a 68x. And we're just at 10% year over year adoption. And again, only 10% bullish of Uniswap. But in a full year, in a bull market, I think we could become about at least half as effective as Uniswap. Well, if we can do that in the first year, all of a sudden we're looking at a $100 investment looking more like 14x in 1 year and 1,693x in the end of year 5. So that gets a lot more impressive already.
How do you calculate that price appreciation based on the inputs that you've told us so far?
So we go back to the what if game, and here I've got cells up in the top corner which do some dividing or multiplying by the scaling effect of the user adoption, which then adds to math in the purchase field. So basically right here is where all the calculations are going off, and it's telling me how much money from the buy and burn can be applied. So in the third month, there may only be $2,000 worth of buy pressure. But in the fourth, we might be looking at $3,500 of buy pressure.
Mhm.
We had the model set the way it is right now. So as I scroll down, we're looking at these orange ones for the purchase amount, and we see we're scaling up, But as we jump into the third year, an entire year of purchasing looks more like $134,000 of liquidity pumped into the PulseX pools that can be exit liquidity for anybody that wanted to get out without requiring a market investor. So you have an appreciating asset token pretty much mechanically, because this is just going to ramp up the more this site is used. So really, the market's going to want to buy on top of this, I figure. So, I mean, what I never show anybody or tell anybody really is that actually there is buy portions built into my models. So like, all right, let's say in the first month we get a 20% sell off, but then let's say that 10% of that already gets bought back up. I should probably make this cell visible, shouldn't I? Make that white. All right, there we go. 17 or 1.7 trillion. So let's say 10% of it gets bought up. That did I overdo that? Because that really jumped price.
Are you calculating like user controlled coins or total supply?
Wow. I need to put commas in there. Just a moment.
Commas are very important.
There we go.
Commas.
Oh, I'm putting a dollar amount of buy pressure. That's why. Oh yeah. If I go over to the what if game, so I'm doing that in month 6 right now, so we can see how the math kind of works. So I put in a purchase amount, and 17 million or 17 billion is a little excessive. I'll have to take that because that's the dollar amount of buy. That took, though, 271 billion tokens off the market, and then that basically would include slippage. So that just raked way too many coins out of the liquidity pool, because I was thinking removing coins, but I set this to dollar values. So we'll take that down a little bit. But say $1.7 million of buy pressure. That's a lot more reasonable. Goes back into that liquidity pool after we get a sell-off. Well, $1.7 million of buy pressure in those 6 months against that 20% sell-off, with the buy and burn just at month 6, we're looking at a 10,000x in 6 months with these kind of conditions. And in 5 years, $100 could theoretically be closer to $2 million in these conditions where that's just the sell-offs. But we could even play more sell-offs and more market buys into this depending on what you think is going to happen, because I don't know exactly how the market's going to buy or not. I built a what if game, a completely adjustable variable model. So in here, you guys hit me with some numbers that you think we should set this to. Like, what kind of adoption year over year do you guys think we'll get? You think 25% year over year? 50?
I mean, so it's really interesting, like where it starts from, because it's like, Uniswap started with 0 users, but we're starting with 150,000. I think that, multiple years in, or if the airdrop is super effective, you could see, you could see like more daily active users than you have now. What is it? Sami says there's like 250,000 active users now in the system.
Well, here, this is, I forgot to even show off the user count that I did. So at 10% growth at this model right now, 5 years, we're looking at 1.6 million. 10 years, possibly 2 million users. 15 years, we're getting closer to over 4 million. 5 million users at the end of 20. And that's just at 10% year over year. But I think that's ridiculously low. I think we're looking at something at least 20% year over year, if not more. And when we start compounding like that, we can see the user count. We can get up to 5 million by 11 years, 26 million in 17 years. And that just ranks in even more pressure to this model. I mean, the numbers jumped even more where we can take out that buy and leave it at just market. Just leave it at the automated buy pressure, take that market buy out. So, I mean, in these conditions, even with a 20% sell off and no market buying, well, we're looking at a 12x on $100 in a year, and we are looking at a 3,919x in 5 years with these conditions. And that's just the theoretical buy pressure going off from PulseX. Again, only a 20% sell-off in the first month. Not looking at any other selling and profit taking or any other market buying. This is just showing how much liquidity gets pumped into that market over and over. So right now, the end of the second year, $145,000 pumped into the liquidity pool in a year. The end of the fifth year, we're looking at $430,000. $500,000 at the end of year 6 in 1 year pumped into the liquidity pool just from the automated buyer. I know this can be a little bit overwhelming and a lot to take in.
Yeah. So when you say that, when you're talking about the value being injected, we're talking about from the fees that are collected.
Yeah, like all that buy pressure is the estimated value of the fees, basically, because I look at the volume that happens, the dollar value of the volume. So it's the percentage of that, which is he's collecting. What was it again? My God, the number is so low. I have it over in my model, so why not go look at it directly? Here we go. All right. So the PulseX fees, that's right. 0.29% to undercut, and 21% of that fraction of a percent is what's potentially going to be used for the buy and burn. So roughly 1/5 of what's collected, and that's less than 1/3 of a percent of the fees. So that does sound really small at first, but when you look at Uniswap doing $1 billion a day, well, 1% of $1 billion is 10 million. 1/3 of a percent, like that would be 2.9 million, and 1/5 of that, 2.9 million. That's roughly just under $600,000 that would go to the buy pressure if Uniswap were doing the same thing.
I'm seeing in the comments here, there's, a lot of anticipation for launch, and it's like, here's what I want to point out. And, there are only 4 coins that have done a 10,000x or more in crypto. There's Bitcoin, Ethereum, HEX, and SHIB. There's only 1 coin in crypto where the founder or people who are paying attention said this is possible to do a 10,000x. Nobody said that in Bitcoin. You couldn't buy Bitcoin on day 1 or on day 100 and enjoy the luxury of somebody pointing out what was possible. And it's in the Highest of Stakes documentary promo video is like, this is what every scammer will tell you, right? They're like 10,000x is possible. But in this case, of HEX, you actually had regret if you sold on a 10x, or if you sold on a 70% dip that happened 7 times. And so I would categorize PulseX in the category of things that might be the second coin where people were saying, hey, this could happen, right? It can go down 99.9%. Like that can happen. But the difference is what we're telling you is that there are game theory mechanics here where it could go up 10,000x. It could go up 20,000x like SHIB did, like Bitcoin did. Ethereum, I don't think quite made it there. Maybe it did. But that's the difference in my
Well, that's
opinion.
where with this thing, like it to me, it doesn't matter time wise whether it happens in 3 months, 6 months, or 6 years. That's what's beautiful about the design of doing buybacks and never selling them back on the head, throwing your shares in a dumpster and hitting delete, burning them, so that liquidity is added for investors. That's very, very attractive. The price will do a 10,000x eventually, as long as Pulse Chain continues to run. The question really becomes, how long does it take? How quickly can we ramp that up? And I mean, a lot of people talked about the sell-off numbers at, a lot of people missing the Pulse Chain sacrifice. So that's why I put in that 20%. And I mean, considering we got like 1 billion people or $1 billion in the sacrifice, I mean, really just to even see, let's say in month 3, play around with this and create a scenario. This is not necessarily what'll happen, but in this world, what if? So $10 million worth of buy pressure comes in to within the first 3 months to counter that sell-off, which pushes it way off. But then in the 4th month, we end up getting some more profit taking. We get another 10% sell-off to the market because everybody is so excited about this. They just cannot help themselves. Boom, it's tank price back down. But I mean, by the time we're talking 6 months later, another $5 million of buy pressure, people buying it back up off the market, and then let's do some more selling. All right, again in the 9 months, so we'll do another 10% off to the market, creating a story here. Thanks for bearing with me. I know it can be a little boring waiting for a bunch of numbers to get typed in. So, all right.
Actually, I can appreciate it, Mr. Guns, because I do the same thing all the time.
All right, and let's even just make this $100,000 of buy pressure at the end of the first year. So market buying and market selling dumped in here to watch what happens to the price being bounced around under these market conditions. And what I really, really love is this small spot at the bottom. Well, this is where I calculate the total amount of tokens minted outside of the OA, because in my mind, the OA wallet doesn't really have tokens. It has an imaginary supply that will never hit the market, so there's no point in thinking about it. It's an erroneous variable for my math, because I'm assuming those will never hit the market. So in the first year with this kind of action, 3.7 trillion out of those 17.8 trillion market tokens burnt. So we're all of a sudden down to just 14 trillion tokens. And that's what I think is really cool. So I can pop in here and even say, let's have another one of those epic sell-offs here. 20% in the 3rd year, because it's a bear market, maybe. Wham, to hit price down. And now we can see that there are another 3.4 trillion pretty much removed from the market by the buy and burn all by itself by the end of 5 years, and only 10 trillion. We've got almost half the tokens burnt and gone, never to be able to be sold on your head by any investor or the PulseX DEX in this scenario at the end of 5 years. And still, that's a 2,559x on your investment in this scenario, with that much a hardcore market dumping against the buy and burn.
It's amazing.
that's why I love building this thing, because I'm like, it's Tumblewumba's stumping song. I get knocked down, but I get up again. You're never gonna keep my price down.
Chumbawamba.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Chumbawamba. There's another
that's right.
20% dumped on the market and 7 trillion supply left. We're still looking at a 1600x by the end of year 5 with that kind of market dumping, and
Yeah.
no more buying in these years. And when we go over to the 10 and 20 year, I joke, don't watch if you have a heart condition, because I mean, these numbers, they get insane when we're talking about $284 million from a $100 investment 20 years later, potentially like 2 million X's in 20 years. That's just insane to me, because I might live 20 years. There's a chance. Like, could this still be running? Could I really just be that fat of a cat that I can retire? Of course, with inflation, that'll still probably just get me a studio apartment by then.
Well, and you know, I've built a tool that is designed to help people in this type of a scenario where the mad gains are so much. I know I wouldn't be able to handle them. And so being able to time lock your PulseX or your Pulse Chain tokens or your Ethereum, you know, for 5, 10, 20, 50 years, that's you know, that's also a game changer in terms of eating up the supply that's available at any time. So I've got some updates I'm gonna share on that, I think later down the path. But I've found this one comment that I really want to address, because it's I think it's actually a really good question. Is somebody's asking, what if there's another PulseX project that is even better than this one, right? So the way that I would think about that is that basically, when you have a decentralized exchange protocol, such as Uniswap or PulseX is a copy of Uniswap on Pulse Chain, the name of the game is to understand the liquidity that's out there. That dominates like the routing, basically, because there are aggregator sites and whatnot that route to find the best deal on these decentralized exchanges. So matcha.xyz and 1inch and these places where people go to exchange, what they're doing is they're basically searching a database full of these order book ratios filled with these deals, and always the best deal you would find where you're not pushing the price against yourself when you're buying is going to be from a thicker order book, from a thicker liquidity pool. And so that's why it's so fascinating when we look at the game theory of Pulse Chain, because there's something called the fixer bot, which goes in and it's interesting because like the thicker the liquidity, the harder it is to move the price, right? But if you don't have thick enough liquidity, then a competitor exchange could come along and they could eat up some of the routing, some of the buy orders and sell orders and fees. And so it is, I believe, a balancing act in the end for a system, right, to find critical mass, to find adoption. And if there's too thin liquidity, I think that there could be a competitor DEX that would dampen the appreciation of PulseX. Now, when I said that PulseX has the greatest network effect of any RH coin, as judged by the number of sacrifice addresses and the amount of like social interest that I see developing, that's really important, because if you have people out there talking about your exchange, it's more likely that people will use it, but it's not a guarantee. And I would say that if there's massive competition in this space for liquidity providing platforms, then you might have less gains from PulseX. What do you guys think?
Really, I think that's where we'll see a Metcalfe's law, a network effect. I mean, the more liquidity and the more areas to play, the more users will come. The more options just makes, where Richard Hart says, smaller piece of a larger pie. So, I mean, even if PulseX relaunched with a clone of V3 as a separate DEX, I mean, aggregators would work between them and share the value and the fees. I think it would still be a great thing to see the innovation and expansion of the market on Pulse Chain.
We might see like a snowball effect where we, as the initial PulseX operators, we'll start having that small snowball effect going on where we start burning the PLSX, and then the buy and burn starts raising up the price. And as the price goes up, people start noticing. And as more people kind of get in there, it just kind of gets bigger and bigger and bigger. Um, so it just might really ramp up pretty quickly, to tell you the truth.
So it's yeah, I mean, it's fascinating to think like what's going to happen in years from now. You see in some domains you have a first mover advantage, or you have, Google was not the first search engine, but it's doesn't seem to be going away anytime soon, years down the road. I think that there are risks of PulseX. I think that, if a bunch of people start playing a game where they start wrapping tokens from Pulse Chain and they bring them over to Ethereum, and they use V3 as like a method, that whales could be dampening the effect of price appreciation, instead of letting the perfect amount of liquidity that's low enough that you can move the price of these things up, but it's high enough that you're discouraging competition. Right there might be a sweet spot there. But you guys might be able to tell, and I think we're all kind of in the same boat of like, there's a lot of thought being put into this, into this game theory, and it's something that's innovative. When in game theory, if you change one piece, then it can have effects of changing all the other parameters, as a Top Gun can probably demonstrate better than I can. So it's yeah. So I find it particularly fascinating, to bang my head against the wall and think about what all the variables are in PulseX and Pulse.
And remember, Richard has always said that like the job of a CEO is to drive value into the share price. And so, you got to kind of think about that too. Is that
Bitcoin doesn't have a CEO, man.
it's true.
Satoshi, the most anonymous, non-existent CEO ever.
The CEO of Bitcoin?
The head dev. That's what crypto has. Head devs.
Have you guys ever seen that account on Twitter, like the dev? He
Yeah.
makes like comedy videos. It's pretty good.
He's actually pretty funny.
He's always like smoking cigarettes and like hanging out with his old friends, and they're like doing competitions in the backyard, and he like films in his trailer, and he's like pretty hilarious. He's called the dev.
There was another guy. He was a rapper. He was like an 85-year-old rapper called Bitcoin, and that guy was pretty wild. So yeah, no, I'm excited about PulseX though. I mean,
Man,
I'm excited about everything.
Yeah.
But PulseX seems to be something a little bit more special. A lot of people are always like, "Oh, PulseX over Pulse Chain," and I was like, I don't really see why, but that was when we were still going under the BSC rules. And now that we've switched up a little bit, I'm like, it seems like the game theory has changed, and so and the game theory for PulseX has more or less stayed the same, but we're understanding it a lot better. And I think the future is bright. You know, Top Gun, he has the sunglasses on because his future's bright.
It is. It is.
Mr.
I
Gunn.
got my sunglasses.
That's what Dollar Cost says.
Yep, that's actually where I heard it earlier. I was listening to that podcast earlier. I heard him say that.
Hell yeah. Yeah, we saw the game theory of Pulse Chain evolve as well, and it's fitting into the Ethereum 2.0 model. We saw, we saw the unlock fork happen in Ethereum, and it was not hurting the price as some people had thought it might, had feared, and that's pretty cool. They are like taking turns, and they have some interesting game theory about how the withdrawals are allowed. And so it's like over time, it's over like weeks that validators get a chance to
I
take
heard
tokens out or put them in.
it's 17 days behind. So if you want to like schedule, if you want to withdraw your ETH, there's like a 17-day waiting period.
Wow.
Um,
And I guess like a few days ago,
and
it was only 14-day waiting period. And so now it's like 17-day waiting period. So it means more people are trying to get out. But I also heard that the staking of the ETH is outpacing the unstaking. So there's that too.
and
So
of
more
course,
is being staked than unstaked.
Correct.
and Pulse Chain had originally been in deflationary, and now it's kind of a mixture of inflationary and deflationary. And so PulseX there has different mechanics that distinguish it. And look, a picture of a dog, was the fastest appreciating crypto of all time, and had no utility. And so all of this, can come down to a meme or to, actual mechanics.
Yeah, like with PulseX, I mean, instead of just being a token slapped on the side like the Uniswap token, there's at least functionality where, okay, if I have 10 million coins or more, I have voting rights in the DAO. That's pretty cool. Oh, I can lock these up myself, not with a really time lock, but I can still put them in a pool to collect if people are airdropping and it's been approved by that DAO. And all in all, there is constant exit liquidity being pumped into the value of these voting shares. I'm sorry, I mean crypto. So yeah, I love the mechanics because really, essentially, like I do hate the argument where the utility of crypto is great to not have a middleman, and Bitcoin solves that. But at a certain point, when you get more and more crypto on the market, it's like, okay, well, what else do you do? Well, I do everything Bitcoin does. Okay, great. And I have a picture of a dog. Why does that give you enough value that like realistically, when we are at the threshold, we're able to build a lot better technology that is a lot better structured to be a lot more fair and have a lot more utility and use case, and do what Bitcoin did of allow trustless sending of value between people. That's just amazing. Like, not everybody gets it right away, but this is one of those technology things where they don't have to. The price is gonna go with big giant green candles everywhere and probably do loop-de-loops on the screen some days. So that'll get people's attention.
Yeah, I feel, like the cryptos have started something, and with Ethereum doing the smart contracts, that's really big. But it's kind of the way I kind of see it is that Richard is kind of like building the iPhone. It's that the iPhone, Steve Jobs didn't invent anything the iPhone had. He just took existing technologies and then smashed them all together into the perfect product. And that's kind of what Richard is doing. And we're gonna have this, closed ecosystem of, you know, money swirling from place to place, and it's just kind of, it's going to attract more money like a vortex to swirl into it. And once people realize that this system is where you kind of want to place your money, because it can actually start working for you, and the more people that realize that, the more capital that gets injected. um I think it's just going to attract more and more people. And one of the things that I noticed this week, especially, is that the walls around Richard Hart they're really starting to crumble.
I
And
want to throw out real quick. We need to do Brisology and I were playing a game where he's doing a really awesome summary of things that people in the Hex community have said, and it was your friend Sami. Am I right? Am I right that that's where the iPhone comment came from?
no, actually, I just made that up off the top of my head. I don't.
Seriously?
Yeah.
It's a Briz original, baby.
Oh,
Did he
dude.
say something about the iPhone?
He just did a video about that.
Oh, I didn't even
Yeah,
see
that's so
that.
cool, man. Hey, like minor side note. So Discourse Syndicate, they put a
Great
DeLorean
minds think alike.
in
That's
their
right. So
intro. They put a DeLorean in their intro the same week I was buying a DeLorean, and neither of us told each other about it. So
I
like
thought that
seriously,
was Connect. I thought that
my
was
internet
no,
cut out. Who was
it
it?
wasn't.
That's hilarious.
Discourse Syndicate, they put a DeLorean in their intro in the morning show the same week that I bought a DeLorean, and neither of us knew about the other.
That's funny.
Yeah.
Markable made that. Yeah, a lot of parallel thinking, right?
Yeah. I didn't tell anybody. So
Hey,
That's
let me
awesome.
throw a comment to Briz. Briz, in relation to what you were talking about the Apple iPhone. So this is kind of funny to me for me because I've been in technology for a long time, right? For over 30 years. I guess if I add all the years up, and even me, right? Some of the stuff gets by me. Like, okay, I could foresee what was going to happen with LPs and cassette decks, and I knew that MP3s were going to be big and all that kind of stuff, right? How to make that play is a whole different thing, right? But those iPhones came out. I looked at that thing and I held it in my hand, and I actually said these words. I was like, well, we're never going to do work on these. You can't do what you need to do on them, right? And because at the time it was just the beginning, because I couldn't. At that moment, I didn't open my mind far enough. A year later, I was making iPhone apps, right, with my team and getting them deployed because nobody had them, and we figured out you could do that stuff, right? Because there was a time there weren't smart apps, I mean, it just wasn't something that was readily available, but anyways, you can look at what's happened certainly with that technology and kind of apply that to what's happening with crypto as well. And crypto is only, by the way, only a couple of years younger, right? And the iPhone came out in 2007. Bitcoin was 2009, and some would say it already had been embedded, right?
That's true. That's true.
Well,
the iPhone and crypto are pretty close in age.
I got to apologize, Brisology, because like that's a good point that you made.
I'm sorry. Apologize about what?
Like I called you out that you were parroting Sami, but you just had the same brilliant idea that he did.
Oh, yeah.
So that's really cool.
Much
Yeah.
like Good Morning Hex.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay?
Exactly. Great minds think alike.
That's right. But yeah, so like I said, I think the walls around Richard Hart are crumbling. I mean, there was like so many haters this week. We're just all talking about Richard Hart. We had that pathetic Eric Wall and Peter McCormick interview. That was this week. It felt like a month ago,
It did.
but that was this week, and they just could not stop talking about Richard. The altcoin daily boys, their engagement baiting us by putting a little hex logo under 5 coins to $1 trillion.
Nice.
And then BitBoy, he was talking about adding Hex to his portfolio. So
Yeah.
I'm telling you, man, I really think the walls around Richard Hart are crumbling. I think Pulse Chain is giving him the legitimacy that he wished Hex gave, or, should have gave him, but everyone was just being salty little soy boys.
The best
And
part too is PHEX when it gets paired in liquidity with PulseX, Hart's Law, transferring that value from that crystal ball I just showed over to Hex as well.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. People don't want to hear that, Mr. Gunn, but I want to hear it. I'm thinking about it all the time because Hart's Law will be in effect for everything that's tied closely together.
I've got to say, I've just started to like further appreciate Johnny Chaos's like model, because it really is like a profound thought experiment in my mind to like go into what Hart's Law really means, how it works, how it can work if you know, if you're a liquidity provider in the system, you're an origin address, you're a whale, the possibilities are great. And yeah, I feel like I keep learning so much from this space, from all the amazing YouTubers, from doing the show with you guys on Tuesdays, from Twitter, from everywhere. It's really cool.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I love sharing things with the different people in this space. I mean, the community is part of what really drew me in. Everybody that believed in the values Richard Hart has in the sci-fi book, like just seeing community willing to work together and share so many ideas. That's why I love like anybody reaches out and asks me a question. Like I don't think I ignore any Twitter comments unless they're associated with tokens I won't talk about. But yeah, I love this community. I love helping out and answering questions. Like I was actually curious to ask like how far you got with your auto GTP installation, because you asked me about some of the questions and how to get it installed.
Yeah, well, okay, so I had to take like a last minute trip down here to Florida to hang out with a fellow Hexagon here, Art, who he's got this like miniature RH Brito painting in the background, and there's a highest of stakes movie poster that has RH's signature on it, and it says Mad Gains and stuff. So like, shout out to Art first of all for letting me stream from his humble abode here, and you know, I haven't gotten a chance, and I do want to talk to you guys about these leaps forward in artificial intelligence, and because it's crossing over into all areas, I think, of the technology sector. But I was thinking, first off, Top Gun, I was just wondering, maybe you could tell us a little bit of your backstory in crypto, just to help orient us. I guess normally we would do that at the beginning of the interview, but but we wanted in the main vein, we wanted the PLSX shot up in the main vein. So
Yeah, no, it's needed the hopium, needed to see those numbers, see what it's capable of doing under certain circumstances. Yeah.
you
No,
need to bring the fire before I want to know anything about you.
well, my story, like I was a computer hacker programmer, like in the late 90s. I was already getting deep into stuff. So I did a lot of stuff, networking, Cisco certifications. So I worked with Hewlett Packard, Verizon, a bunch of other companies. And after the dot-com boom, I ended up in tech support. And after enough years of that, I was just kind of pretty fed up. And somebody came along and offered me 100 Bitcoin for $50. Yes, I got one of those stories. And at the time, I looked at because I could understand the technology. I looked at the encryption. I went, that's actually pretty cool. But the the fact is that this chain's just going to get bigger and bigger and longer and harder to store. That's going to cost more money. That's not going to be efficient. This technology is going to have problems 15, 20 years. Like, I'm looking at it like that. And I'm like, and also, where are you getting the money from? I don't understand how this thing's printing money. That's got to be illegal. I did not understand liquidity pools, which is really ironic considering how well I just went through liquidity pools with you guys. So yeah, I didn't buy it, of course, and I ran away from computers around the beginning of Web 2 just because I was fed up with technology and doing tech support. Every time you build a better computer, the world seemed to build a better idiot, and I went into construction for the last 10 years. The whole time Bitcoin's around, I did construction. I went back to school. I took some business classes, some accounting, and couldn't believe Bitcoin was still around. I'm like, okay, whatever. and then finally, a year and a half ago, I had a friend that was an absolute believer in Richard Hart. Read sci-fi, had 4 programming degrees, and thought HEX was the best invention ever with no admin keys. He ranted and raved and ranted and raved till I said, fine, I'll put $1,000 in while the price is at 22 cents in November 10th. And yeah, so November 10th, 2021, I finally owned some crypto, and I missed the Pulse Chain sacrifice. And then I found out I had a knack for just naturally detecting when a dip was coming in the chart and buying a dip. So I kept doing that to HEX, even though I kept getting punched in the face. Got into the PulseX sacrifice and pretty much built all my thesis around Richard Hart. And like, I love the community so much. I never thought I would start my own channel. So I mean, I'm watching a YouTuber and I'm seeing them struggle with something or some math, and that's where I come around and build something. And then when they're like, well, I don't know who this loser is messaging me randomly, it's probably a scam, don't DM me. Like, all right, I guess I'll put it on my channel. Here's the math on the death of Bitcoin, different things. I'm just like, here, I'll put it on my channel, whatever. And 100 episodes later, like, wow, I'm actually a YouTuber. When did that happen?
Yeah, welcome.
That's the backstory. I think that catches you up.
Yeah, that's awesome. And of course we do, we're not wrapping up by any means, but we do have the link to your channel here in the show notes and all that good kind of stuff. So everybody make sure to subscribe to all of these fine gentlemen. And I would also like to point out that ChrispyMan is getting really close to 1,000 subscribers.
Yeah,
I know. I am. Did you see my? I don't know, what did I call it? Did you see my play over the weekend for the stupid dad jokes?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, it backfired, didn't it?
No. I got over 50 people. So I mean, hey, considering it's difficult, as we talked about, right, when you try to grow channels, it's difficult to get people to join. I say 50 people over 2 days by threatening to tell jokes was a pretty good win.
That's amazing, actually. And
the
one comment that I saw was somebody said, "I want you to keep telling dad jokes." So
yeah, I got tons of those, man. Apparently, it even made me think I ought to start a handle just for stupid dad jokes.
Yeah.
But that went pretty good. Yeah, getting closer. Only 50 more.
Well, we might be able to get you over that right now if people could go subscribe to ChrispyMan right now. Help him get over 1,000 subscribers
on YouTube. Hexfire.
We need that. Because monetization, right?
Well, yeah, it's become a thing, right? For that, to be able to do things like offer special stickers and all that kind of junk. And so now I'm just incensed that I have to get to 1,000. There's no meaning behind it for me, really, I guess, except for that part of it. But
speaking of jokes, I was watching a YouTube show over the weekend called Kill Tony. And that's with Tony Hinchcliffe. He's a comedian, and he does this show where he brings on open mic comedians, and they do 60 seconds of comedy, and then he kind of like tears them apart or promotes them or whatever. And I thought, man, that would be kind of fun if we could kind of do something similar but with like crypto comedy. Have people just come on and do like 60 seconds of crypto comedy. I
And
don't know. I thought that'd
Yeah,
be
I
kind
think
of fun.
I
Hey
think that would
guys,
be good.
so
I
I
think that
just
would be
gave
good.
my seed phrase to tech support. How long till I get this help, yo?
Yeah, well, we'll just have to do it with puppets. You know, add that in there too. So funny stuff. Yeah,
did you
Briz,
guys
I
see Georgia's thing? Her sock puppet of Eric Wall. You guys
Yeah,
have to see that.
yeah, I saw that today. That was
Oh,
pretty
man.
funny.
gotta get a look. I gotta go look for it. Let me see
It's
if I
really
can do
good.
that.
I did have one joke. Do you guys want to hear it?
Yeah.
I made it myself. All right. I said says I recently had one of my wallets hacked recently. Apparently Dick and Balls coin isn't safe to claim. Who knew?
Who knew?
That's the joke.
Don't quit your day job.
Bum.
I got a one-liner. Gary Gensler. Yeah, that's the joke.
Oh,
That's the
man.
joke.
That's the joke.
I heard that guy's getting fired pretty soon.
Yes, I'm hopeful. Senator's putting in the paperwork.
But then there's just gonna be a bigger baddie that steps up, right? There's gonna be a final boss.
Well,
I don't know. I'm hopeful for Hester Purse. Hester Purse.
Pierce.
She's the crypto
Yeah.
mom. She's pro crypto, and
That's right.
she put out a good statement against Gary just before the firing notice. So like, and he got roasted so well today. I'm really hopeful that maybe she'll get a chance. That we'll get some innovation pro. I'm trying to be optimistic. You know, maybe this stuff could actually work out in our favor.
So the context there is that and I had to look this up. The SEC is composed of 5 commissioners, and I believe it's one of those commissioners is serving as the head of the SEC. And so Gary Gensler is right now acting as the head of the SEC, and he is horrible and got roasted in the most amazing way possible today on Capitol Hill. I think it was the Senate Finance Committee and not the House Finance Committee, but there was there was a clip that I saw, and I kind of wanted to share it if we can. Let me see if I can share the audio because it's too good, and I really might quit everything and learn how to like do a remix, like learn how to make my own jam of like part of this speech that this guy gave today. So it's that good. That's what I'm saying. Hopefully you guys will be able to hear the sound here. Let's see.
That's what I should.
Can you hear that?
Make a rap remix of this video.
Yeah, can you hear this?
No.
You can't hear it.
No.
When you go to share or present, there should be an option to share with sound.
I must not have clicked it. All right. It says share tab audio.
Yeah, after you click on the window, there should be an option, I think, down near the bottom that says share with sound.
Can you hear it now?
Yes.
Whether there's
Sweet.
some sort of coordinated approach.
Okay, so it's about halfway through. He just starts roasting.
Issuers of Ethereum Max
It's a little quiet, though.
The Ethereum Max is security. He reached a settlement for promoting an unregistered security. The unregistered security is Ethereum Max. Have you charged the issuers of Ethereum Max for offering an unregistered security?
He's talking about Kim Kardashian.
We reached a settlement with a celebrity, Miss Kardashian.
Yeah, but not. She just promoted it. She doesn't operate Ethereum Max. Have you said that Ethereum Max is an unregistered security to the people that offer it?
We did in that settlement, yes, sir.
The good part's coming out.
It's still trading. What
I mean,
about
that's pretty good.
Ethereum? Is Ethereum now a security?
We had this.
I heard your
discussion.
exchange. They've been in place since 2015. You say in your statements that there's clarity in the market and the rules are clear. Just come on in. You can't even answer the question.
Boom.
Did you say XRP is a security?
We're in court and active discussions and litigation on that.
You're in
matter.
litigation because you do say it's a security.
Boom.
As you know, let's move on a little bit. As you know, qualified custodian banks would effectively be unable to provide crypto asset related custody as a result of punitive capital impact under accounting provisions in Staff Accounting Bulletin 121. You agree that the bulletin should be amended?
That the staff addressed an accounting issue and appropriately saw that crypto assets held in custody today are not segregated or not bankruptcy remote in bankruptcy and should be appropriately put on public company financials.
I wish I had time to go into the ESG rule and everything else, but Chairman Gensler, your record of failures
This is it.
to protect investors and abuses of power make it clear that we need to restructure the Securities and Exchange Commission. The failures are many, but let me cite some of the abuses. You average more than 2 rules proposals a month. You provide inappropriately short comment periods. You have unworkable and unlawful ESG disclosure mandates on the market. You have essentially a Hotel California rule for crypto where you can check in anytime you like, but you can never leave. You have endless discovery with no resolution and no clarity for the captives in the market. You have unworkable proposals for overhauling equity market structure, a de facto ban on crypto through proposed custody rule.
It's like, he's like, you smell, I can smell you from here. You look like Mr. Burns, right? And shit from The Simpsons. Like, this dude is roasting hard.
You have high staff turnover, unhappy people leaving your office, and unhappy companies and capital leaving our country. To correct a long series of abuses, I'm introducing legislation that removes the chairman of the Securities and Exchange Commission and replaces the role with an executive director that reports to the board where all authority would reside. Former chairs of the SEC will be ineligible under my proposed bill. And this isn't just my take. It resonates across the political spectrum. The American people want democratic access to capital, retail investor participation. You can't just exclude retail investors from markets and claim it's for their own good. Our markets need to function and flourish, and I yield back.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah.
It's like we took pictures of people leaving their work and they look sad.
Hey, what's the politically correct term for old boys club, or the good old boys club? Because that's what we used to call it, right? And when you would set up barrier to entry, and this is pretty true in most human endeavors, right? You have something, you don't want to share it, you want to prevent other people from getting in, so you create barriers to entry, right? And sometimes, yeah, maybe I guess that sometimes maybe there's reasons you should do that, you know, in certain industries and situations, but clearly, you know, these guys can't give a straight answer, right? I mean, you know, it's kind of like, even if they just said no, and that was the answer, I would be happy with that than not an answer, right?
Yes.
Or an answer that sometimes applies that you can't possibly ever answer, you know, ever like deal with. It's pretty
Yes.
infuriating. I mean, so I like what that guy was saying. I didn't catch the name of the speaker, but I like what he was saying. Yeah, because he's calling it out the way most normal people see it. Like,
Yeah.
you know, hey, I asked you this, you won't give me an answer, you know?
This is Warren
Cronyism,
Davidson. Warren Davidson of Ohio.
That's the one calling for his axing.
Yep. Yeah.
That's nice. Yeah, and I see somebody, lazy hexagon, said cronyism. Yeah, that's probably a good word for it, cronyism.
Mm.
You know, but it's you know, it's that thing. And you see that in a lot of ways. You know, most of the time it's supposed to be you protect the public thing, right? You know, like you do that. I mean, even when you talk about things like licensing, and like Maddie, you know, right? I mean, I can't just hang up a shingle and say that I'm a therapist, right? there's some sort of controls over that. I can't go out and do construction and sign off on certain permits and things because I might not have the qualifications. Some of that is for protection, but
Can't just give financial advice
you can't
on
just
the
give
internet.
right, and you can't do that, which is why we're really clear that we're not doing that all the time, right?
Correct.
But I mean, those all make sense, right? That there's those things, but it goes so far as to, I guess I'm repeating myself, but just so far as to like not provide any clear path at all, like a
Yeah, sure.
bureaucracy,
It's a problem.
But if you ever get in trouble for tax avoidance, you can maybe go, hey, there was no clear path.
Yeah, good luck.
There is very clear paths for paying taxes. So
Yeah.
that's pretty easy. But
Yeah.
but this other stuff is no joke. I mean, it is driving the number of developers out of the US. They have statistics on this that I've seen reported on crypto shows lately. There are fewer developers in the United States on the Ethereum platform, and it's growing worldwide. So this is it's a problem. And
did you guys hear about Coinbase statement
what
today?
about them? What'd they say?
They said they might move out of the country.
No way.
If they don't have clear regulations.
Wow.
Yeah. Maybe they just said Brian Armstrong just said that they might move out of the country.
It's a matter of survival.
Gensler's gotta go.
Yeah.
We can't be losing devs like this. Like Ethereum has been losing devs just because of the gas fees for a long time. Like I know a lot went over to BNB because of that, but like to lose more because of this kind of stagnation and oppression. Oh,
man. Yeah, they just said they need more regulatory clarity. And if not, they might be moving out. They were asked by the UK Chancellor. So,
well,
I don't think they're leaving.
Well, it's a hell of a threat, though. It's good, though. In that way, if you're into looking at it that way, what I mean is, hey, listen, I live up in the Northeast, right? Northeast is terrible about taxes, and so they got it in their heads. The people in charge, who maybe I didn't personally elect, that we elected, got it in their head, said, hey, you know what? You're a big company. You got a headquarters here. We're going to take away incentives to keep you here, and we're going to tax the hell out of you. And for a while, it was an immovable force, right? People didn't move. But then one company after another said, well, we'll just move to Florida. We'll move to Texas. We'll move somewhere else. And they left. And by then, the people who made the decisions that caused all the problem, they're already out of office, or maybe not. Maybe they're sitting around and they're just taking on, a different vein. But you lose those companies, and those people and those employers leave, and the people, that are left behind, that are the residents of those areas, they're hit pretty hard. Same thing with, I know we talk about eating the rich all the time. We beat up on rich people. They got too much. They got too much. Yeah, eat the rich. It's a terminology, right? But I mean, we beat up on them all the time. They need to pay more taxes, right? Well, you know what happens when you start doing unreasonable things? I don't mean reasonable. I mean like unreasonable things. They leave your state. They don't stay. And that maybe that takes 2-3 years to happen, but then they go. And you've seen that most recently in California, I believe, with it just being stupid, silly, some of the things that go on. And then, why wouldn't I want to go to Texas? I like Texas, why wouldn't I move there? Right. And not have to put up with that crap. Right. So eventually, of course it's slow, but eventually it'll all come back around full circle.
Speaking of Coinbase and taxes, I don't know. So one of the tricks that I've kind of been doing, is I've been kind of sending USDC to Coinbase and then sending that to my bank account. and it seemed like it was just the USDC transfer, and there was no taxable event. I went into
We don't give tax advice here, and
no.
that's my decision on my channel. Just to not even broach the topic. Really, I would tell you that that's probably wrong, and you should get professional help. And there are
Well,
lots of really cool services out there. But the reason why people should be transferring USDC to Coinbase is because you're not going to pay a fee to convert Ethereum or anything similar into
it's just a
dollars
little
anyway.
15-cent fee, so it's like barely anything. But I just want to let
There's no
people.
fee. There's no fee to swap USDC to USD in your bank account on Coinbase.
Yeah, they're charging me a 15-cent fee now. I noticed that change maybe like a few weeks ago.
Huh. Okay. Good to know.
So yeah, well, it was nothing. But I just want to let people know now, whenever you transfer USDC from Coinbase to your bank account, they are actually marking that as a taxable event. So before it was just like nothing, but now I am noticing that there is a taxable event that they are attaching to the taxes segment of their website. So just FYI.
Coinbase is keeping better track of all that stuff
Yeah.
for sure. Yep. So, yeah, very cool. And like, yeah, I think that there are hexicans out there that specialize in trying to understand that side of things with taxes. And Richard usually directs people to a certain Telegram group, I think, when it comes to people arguing about governments and taxes and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So look on hexsearch.io to see like what those resources are. Yeah. So, another thing that I noticed this week is that there have been a massive number of hacks. And there's one in particular that is really interesting. I stumbled upon a Twitter post that had 1.1 million views. And it's somebody who did a super deep dive, like Zach XBT level, but somebody on the Ethereum, who's not that person basically is tracking this massive series of basically Ethereum OGs who are getting drained and nobody knows why. They haven't figured out due to on-chain behavior. There's a more sophisticated level of washing that's going on with these coins. And part of the reason why I find it so fascinating is because I'm getting closer to bringing to market this product, Time Pays Me, that allows you to undo a hack, so to speak, because you have a second seed phrase set up ahead of time. You have a smart contract that you have self-custody of that is controlling the permissions of whether the coins can be sent, even if somebody does get access, to your first seed phrase. So super important to keep that in mind that it's scary to not be protected, to not be using a hardware wallet, to hear that there's a new hack that people don't understand. And so definitely be careful out there. And whether it's basically one tip that you can do today is you can actually use etherscan.io to revoke permissions on your different wallets. And previously, a lot of people would go to revoke.cash as their method to disconnect their wallet from all the permissions that they've set up in the past. Now you can go directly to Etherscan, something that may be a more trusted platform for you in order to do your disconnections.
Do they know? They don't know the website or nothing that's kind of draining these accounts, right?
Correct.
I heard it has something to do with MetaMask, but
well, there's I haven't heard from Papa B in the Hex all day Twitter Spaces, maybe like 3 weeks ago or something, that there was a Mars that they'd called it like a Mars something
yeah, Mars
exploit.
attack. Mars
where
Steeler.
a Mars Steeler is what you would you would research if you were looking into that. And I would even be careful researching, if you're not a security expert, you really need to be
Don't
careful out
click the
there.
Google ad.
Yeah, don't click the Google ad that says Mars
It's probably a
exploiter
scam.
get exploited here. But it's really something we need, I think, and I'm super passionate, and you guys are going to keep hearing me talking about this this ability to protect yourself even better with self-custody. And that's what we need to get more people into the crypto spaces. We need people to have better security more
Exactly.
easily.
We need to let people know that they're going to be safe and secure. And your Time Pays Me, I believe, does that. It's a hacker firewall. That's what I like to call it.
Hell yeah.
I like that. I like that. A necessary tool in wallet warfare.
And the update right now on Time Pays Me is we've got the auditors looking at things, and we've got private testers now working on playing around with it so that we can get closer and closer to launch. So I'm really excited, and shout out to everybody who's helping out there. Thank you.
Good stuff.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
So what else? What else do you guys have in mind this week?
Well, when you want to do a tech thing, I can show you the latest version of my calculator.
Yeah.
Yeah, Mr. Gunn got me all excited. I got some stuff.
All right.
I'm doing. So since he started talking, I made this now. Hey, this should be pretty bullish, though. This will be pretty exciting one, Maddie. You remember I was showing you guys last week this ladder comparison where I was comparing end-to-end staking over time and what it would look like if you were to basically create a ladder where every stake was 1 day and strung it together for Quattro Cinco. And it gave us our total ROI over 15 years. And then you can compare that between these different types, right? So I went a little bit further in a different direction. I wanted to really follow up on that with people and talk about laddering. I think to simplify this communication, right? This point, we know that longer pays better, right? We can all agree with that. Whether you're in the outside in the financial market, you do a CD, or you're in HEX, longer pays better. We know that's true, right? Why is that true? Because whatever protocol, whatever system rules are in place, they give you a higher rate of yield over that period of time. And so we know that on the one hand, you can do a 1 day stake or set up a miner for 1 day and get the absolute minimum for the HEX, and you can go Quattro Cinco and get the absolute maximum that could possibly exist in that situation, right? Most of us don't feel like those are the right answers, like to do one every day or to do only Quattro Cinco, though there's some people that probably do only Quattro Cinco, right? And they're on a totally different plan. But if you need the flexibility and access to HEX during the 15 years, let's say, if that's your window, a staking ladder is recommended, right? And the reason we say a mining ladder or a staking ladder is because by taking advantage of those longer terms, you can increase your percentages, right? And so this one I made in with the vision of what I was thinking about myself and how I actually set up my original ladder with HEX. Now the prices and everything were different because, of course, HEX was in the beginning phases. So in this particular calculator, you can set the desired amount that you would like each one of your miners to pay based on the price that you think it'll be at the time that they would come out. And it's it's using the same price for all of it. And also you can pick a date range for, perhaps how far you want to go out. and adjust that, and it'll do the calculations for you to figure out exactly how many miners you'll have to set up to do monthly, let's say, during the period of time, etc. And so, as Audi, what would you like? Would you like $1 million miner or $1,000 miner? Which one strikes you as exciting to talk about?
Is it how much I'm starting with?
No, it's how much you end up with in the end.
$1 million.
Yeah, so let's do $1 million. Okay, I'm going to say, what's a reasonable guess, because it's only a guess, for hex price? What do we think? 50 cents? We
At
wanna
what
do,
time period?
let's say bull, at the top of the bull.
Of in a year from now?
Yeah, year and a half, whatever. Yeah.
75 cents.
You think 75? Okay. We'll set it to 75. And we're going to say that we're going to use 12.
Hey, I rounded it down to 70.
Yeah, I may not have that ticker right there. So let's do 80 then. That'll do it. For calculator purposes, I have to actually select the number, so I may not have 75. I don't. Yeah. All right. So we're going from now until then, and we're going to go monthly. And I'm going to say that I would like each one of these miners to come out with $1 million worth of hex at 80 cents, right? So it's going to be an incredibly large number. But even for like very wealthy people coming into hex, they could decide they're going to do a monthly and get $1 million out per month. So it would create 32 miners, right? It would create 32 miners. They would need to put 35 million roughly hex in, and they would get back principal plus yield 40 million, and it would be at that price, each one of them would be worth over $1 million.
Is your calculator able to show so it would require 34 million hex? Are you able to show what the current market price of that $34 million hex is?
Yeah, the current market price is 2.3 million for the ladder cost for the entire ladder. I could also do it, I guess, individually, but I just added them up here, and the total return would be 32 million. Now, all right, that's pretty good, right? 32 million. I like that. Give me 32 million, right? But alas, I don't have 2.3 million to put in. So for maybe for the average person, this is a bit much. But when looking at it like this, I'm hoping to help people who are having communications and discussions with people that do have a lot of money that are coming in, that want to allocate a portion of that and be able to allocate it in such a way that they can also reap some sort of rewards from that, right? I usually talk about a lot of money for me being around $10,000 or $20,000. I think, of course, this is judgment call on my part. If I say, hey, listen, $20,000 is a lot of money, right? But I want every month to have $20,000 from now until the end of 25, and that I would sell at 80 cents, that hex eventually. I would just need about 700,000 hex today. I could stake it in this ladder and earn another 100,000 hex, and it would be worth, in total, it would be worth $641,000. And of course, this is taking into it's taking credit for price appreciation, right?
That first month will make you a total of $9.
Yeah, it might actually be very, very small. But no, in this case, I guess this is what Mr. Guns was saying. I could actually put the cost up here for each one of them, but it's only a fraction of the cost, so it would be 20,000 payout for each one of these. And it's assuming that you're going to break the principal down in this kind of a format, that'll be spread out, so that the longer you're going, the less hex you need to produce the same amount of hex that'll give you the $20,000 payout.
Interesting. Nice.
Yeah, it's just another play on this. I told you,
It's
Mr.
very
Guns.
beautiful. I like the layout and everything.
I'm
Very
very
nice.
used to trying to explain things inadequately.
Yeah, your front end's a lot more polite than mine.
Well,
Like,
yeah, well,
Gary,
I have.
you can understand this.
Well, yeah,
The
I have it built.
buttons.
I built it in Excel first, because that's where I do it. So a couple of new features that I'm adding, and so even as we're talking, you can hear. I probably want to put the individual costs in there so people could see that. That would probably make sense. I probably will want to, allow, make it so that people can actually calculate from today making the stake, but not do it, not have the first one end so early, that type of thing. So I'll work on getting the format. But the general idea is that, a couple of good features, Maddie, that I put in this that I thought are pretty cool is that first off, let's say I wanted to compare, year time frames in the future. This will go get the new T-share rates, my expected new T-share rates.
Oh,
So
nice.
and do the calculations based on that. So that might be useful to some folks, because you can actually, and we'll do an example real quick. You can see how much more it'll cost you, and it's roughly 10% every year that you wait. It's somewhere in the neighborhood of 10-12% more hex that you need, and then when you compound that with possible price, it gets a lot higher. So that's one thing that I've also added to this, and then. I'm quite fond of this 180-day moving average for payouts for calcs, because I feel that like that's super conservative, but it doesn't utilize the payout models that we have. So I did include the ability for the guys to, folks to select. Now they just want to go with a 180-day average, or they could change it up and go with the accelerated payouts. And over time, that can make a big difference. And so
Awesome.
if we look real quick on this one, and I'll wrap up for you, I'm going to do 4/18/2024, and I'm going to say I'll just leave it at monthly, because that'll show us what's what. You can see that at the current price of HEX, it would be about a $20,000 ladder cost in order. Of course, again, we're assuming that this HEX target gets met in this period of time, to be able to generate this ladder that might pay 20,000 per rung. And what I wanted to go after with this is to really do this comparison of what does it cost? If it's 19,000 for that, what if I wait a year? What's the cost? So at the ISO is pretty close for this one, right? So you can actually come in here and fool around with the date ranges to see what the ladder costs are, and I guess I didn't expect it would be very close, like 19,000. But you can come in here and see the what the actual principal cost would be for each type of ladder, and each type of miner that you might create. So I'm taking feedback on this stuff. If guys want to see this stuff and utilize it, I've already found some uses for myself, because I want to know, what if I don't want to mess with all this funkiness, and I do want to go out until the end of, let's say, 25, right? Because I'm a believer in the whole Fourier cycle theory, right? So I've got time to do, two 1-year stakes right now, one that I could put out a year. I could say 1-year stakes, but one 1-year, one 2-year stake. And it seems like a reasonable guess that the hex price could be 80 cents between April of 24 and April of 25. Right? Seems reasonable. And even if it wasn't, I could hold and wait. But I can give myself just a little bit more up by getting an extra 7,000 in yield, right? In order to accomplish, the $20,000 payout at that price. Because if I go liquid, I just don't get that extra yield, right? So I'm left with whatever hex that I had, the 42,000 or whatever, instead of the 50,000. Now, of course, you guys know that I'm a big believer in the mining, because it kind of helps even the odds. But I get that there's different people doing different things, right? Then the most incredible ones, which really drive me kind of nuts. If you go out 15 years and you look at what the cost would be to, have a yearly stake come out at 20,000 per year. I mean, a ladder cost at the current price of HEX today at $10,000, $11,000. I mean, now a lot of people are going to see this and be like, they may dismiss this, right? This is what happened to people that came into HEX early 21. Not in the beginning. The beginning it got even better. But this is the type of thing that happened in early 21. And it is incredible. It is hard to get your head around.
Yeah.
It is suspending disbelief, because you go, there's no way you guys are just trying to sell me something, man. That's all. And I'm not trying to sell anybody anything. I'm just putting this calculator together. But you're trying to convince me to put $10,000 in this stupid coin. There's no way this could happen. But it happens all the time in crypto. And the difference.
I think
Go ahead, Chris.
I think one of the biggest things that is hard to get across within HEX, that's like super important, is that when you lock up those TShares for just even a couple years, the TShare rate increases by hundreds of percent. And so your yield will go up by hundreds of percent over the course of a couple years. And that's just not very apparent or obvious to almost anybody when we all first get into it.
Yeah, I don't know exactly which numbers you're talking about when you say hundreds of percent, but I think it's true, and we can prove
like the daily payout. Like right now we're at 6.45, and just like 2 years ago we were at 2 HEX per TShare, so that's gone up 200% since 2 HEX per payout. And if you had locked up from then until now, that means your daily payout has gone up over 200%.
All right, thank you for that clarification. I agree with you. I think that and some other things are lost on people, Bruce. Like most people, they look at the percentage of the APY and they're like, well, I put these percentages in here where it's showing which each one of these stakes will be based on today's numbers. They float upwards. The longer you're staked, the higher, based on how the system has been operating, higher APY goes up every year. So first year you might be at 10. If you do one that's like a 2-year type of a minor or stake, the first year you might be at 13%. The next year it might be 14%. And because it does float up, people. This is I refer to it as boil the frog. A lot of people too impatient. Maybe a third of the people too impatient. Like, I forget. I'm just going to hold liquid. I hear them all the time. They send me messages, and say, I appreciate the mining stuff. And that's fine. It's good for them. I mean, I don't have anything against that. I need people to not mine, because then I get more.
Yeah.
We need both.
Well,
yesterday
we blowtorched the frog. Did you see the TShare rate went up 115 HEX per TShare?
I did. You might be surprised that I watch that every single day. I watch it pretty closely.
So I would encourage people to consider the way that I think about it is you have a ladder and you have a step 0. So that's your liquid bag. And so if somebody's first getting started, depending on what their goals are, if I'm gifting them the crypto or if they're buying in, and like whether it's money, what their timeline is. There are some people who don't have the same timeline as others, but the most general thing I could say is like we set it up so if you want to put $200 in, and you do $50 on 15 years, you do $50 on 10 years, you do $50 on 5 years, and you do $50 of liquid HEX. That's one way to look at a staking ladder. and to see there are 4 steps in that ladder starting with 0.
Yeah, I like that idea a lot too.
Thanks.
Quite so many of us went 100%, right? And maybe that it wasn't the right thing to do either. And that's why you can have lots of like different strategies, right?
Yes.
People can, I mean, anybody can come up with any strategy. It's fine. It's perfect, right? You can do that. And in fact, it might be the right strategy for you. The only thing I try to point out with that is that there are some benefits to locking, just like with, pay me. Uh, oh my gosh. I'm trying to remember the name of your app off the top of my head, and I just got
Time pays me.
Yeah, time pays me. So I'm getting befuddled. But even like with time pays me, the idea is that delayed gratification and locking up is a barrier to you selling.
Yeah.
Right. Now, I don't know that I'm a reformed degen. I might still be a degen, but I'd like to think I'm a reformed degen. I chased many, many shiny things. I have many friends every day who chase many shiny things. And the one thing that I've learned about that is the wash, rinse, repeat cycle. That is where the value gets taken, because not everybody, there's somebody listening who's chases the shiny stuff and wins every time. But the vast majority of us don't. And so you end up swapping out and in and out and in until your value is very little. And you get scalped along the way because you're chasing the shiny thing, because usually by the time you hear about it, the mad gains are already gone. Usually. Maybe not always. Right. Anyways, that's my little spiel. So I'm working on this calc, and I'll do some other things on this calculator to build it up. What I really want to get to is the point that when folks put their wallet addresses in and they filter by those addresses, they can not only see their current ladder, maybe identify any weak spots that they might want to put in, and do a little bit of planning, and maybe even allow multi-year price predictions, of their own making forecasts. Because as we point out, I don't really expect maybe next month that we're going to be at 80 cents, right? So
You need to integrate Chat GPT into it. Chat
yes,
GPT, are there any weaknesses in my ladder?
That's what Maddie and I were talking about, or Maddie was talking to me about.
So that's the next step, and we're gonna get Top Gun to weigh in on that too, because he's the AI expert here. But here we've got a really good question in the chat. Somebody's asking, can you put your sacrifice on your hardware wallet? And so the way that I would look at this is, each hardware wallet, you can have a seed phrase loaded into it. And there's a lot of different setups that people can have in terms of then you could erase that one as long as you have it written down, and you could load a different seed phrase in. What some of us do, if we've, got more money in the system, we would have multiple treasures. And I have a link in the description below, a referral link to where people can get, a hardware wallet if they don't have one. That's what I do, is I have multiple treasures. And so something really important is, let's say you started your Pulse Chain sacrifice or your PulseX sacrifice with an address that you got out of MetaMask. Well, in order to have a better security posture, you could migrate your seed phrase onto a Trezor. And there's really great tutorials on how to do that. But the bottom line is that you don't type in the words ever onto your keyboard ever again. You have them written down, and then you are entering them on the hardware device itself. And the reason you do that is because you don't know if somebody's spying on your keyboard or that type of thing. And so having the hardware wallet there allows the seed phrase to get stored without touching the rest of your computer. It's like a separate computer chip that is not communicating all of its secrets to the rest of your computer.
Yeah, just FYI, they have technology out there where if someone is speaking inside a room, all they have to do is film a plastic chip bag, and your voice is vibrating that bag just so slightly they can actually they can hear your conversation by recording an empty bag of chips, and you're in that room talking. So they got they got surveillance technology that
Oh
can
man, I got
you want to be
I got
freaked
hacked
out.
by my sun chips, man. Sun chips got me
Exactly.
hacked. Wrecked.
Exactly. So
That's
you got to
why
be
I
careful.
always use 1 2 3 4 as my passcode. And you good.
So so
Joke. By the way, don't anybody change your passcode to that.
so
Use
another
0000.
So another point I would make about this question is like how you could improve your security beyond that is you've already migrated your MetaMask generated seed phrase. You've migrated it onto a Trezor. Now what you can do is you can set up a brand new Trezor, and when your Pulse Chain or PulseX coins, when they get airdropped, then you could send a test transaction, and then you could send the whole lot of those coins to now an address that's controlled by a seed phrase that has never touched your computer, right? It wasn't generated by MetaMask. It was generated by the hardware device. So
Yeah,
that would put you
100%.
in even a better position. Normally you don't have like a sleeper hacker who's like leaving your coins alone. A lot of times you would know that you were hacked on the Ethereum side of things. But if you sacrificed everything out of your wallets, there would be a situation where you might not know that you've been compromised. And so, so that would be an upgrade. And then, you could also go even further once Time Pays Me comes out, and you could have a smart contract that you hold custody of in your Trezor that's connected with even a second seed phrase, and that would give you even more protection, because then if you're approving something on your Trezor and it's malicious, you can still get hacked by user error if you have a hardware wallet, and that's why having an extra layer of security with Time Pays Me is, I think, going to be advantageous for a lot of people.
I
Yeah,
think so too.
I think it's huge, man. And then you can never discount. Also, I took the question the way you described it the second time. I don't know if just a test transaction and then the whole bag makes sense, but that is certainly one way to do it. You can also split it up into multiple tranches. Gas is cheap. If
Yeah.
you want to make sure you don't have an issue and see something happen, but it's likely we're not going to have any types of problems like that on Pulse Chain where you'd have to worry about somebody doing something super nefarious like that with a validator. But like when Richard, like for instance, when Richard came out that one time and said, "The hell are these people doing sending $2 billion worth of Bitcoin in one transaction?" Right. So I'm out of my league in describing that properly, but I just recognize that what you're saying is test first, validate, verify, make sure you have that. The other thing that a lot of us didn't do when we first came in, the OGs like in Ethereum, perhaps, maybe not based on the hacks the liquid draining that we're seeing, but the OGs practicing security for a long time at Bitcoin and Ethereum have always maintained that you should move from wallet to wallet over time. You shouldn't use the same wallet for the same repetitive activities. There's a trade-off to that, of course. Like for instance, I received my Pulse sacrifice into one address. Right, every transaction I make opens up an opportunity for me to make a mistake. So there is that risk. But if you were going to go interact with something, you do it on another address, and you might not use that address ever again.
That's
After that
that's
interaction.
one of my biggest contentions with Richard not releasing Pulse Chain yet. I'm like, I want my coins so I can kind of just move them into like different wallets and just be a little bit more. I'm just afraid I'm gonna get freaking hacked by an asshole out there, and they're gonna ruin everything. So I just need those coins to come in. I need to distribute them, spread them out across multiple accounts, multiple wallets, and I'll personally feel a lot more comfortable.
100%. Billions and billions.
Billions and
And
billions.
billions.
Awesome. And now, I guess another topic we could hit is what has Top Gun been up to with this latest generation of artificial intelligence? Because I had heard of it. It was talked about on the All In podcast, something called Auto GPT, which is, I guess, where there's a software program that it does an iterative AI thing where these different AI bots can talk to each other and can create.
It doesn't stop
task
until it
lists.
completes its task.
So maybe Top Gun can describe that a little bit, or we could even get a demo, perhaps.
I can definitely do a demo. So I mean, everybody's being caught up a little bit with the AI craze, and it is pretty impressive where we've jumped pretty quickly. Version 3 of ChatGTP is a language model chatbot. You can talk to it, get answers, and it only has information back to September of 2021. Kind of standard. 4 is the same thing, but a lot faster, a little bit better. But I mean, these things are still biased. They still have what are called hallucinations, aka they don't know something, they'll make it up and lie.
Nice.
So they're not perfect by any means, but then you can get interesting with just the chat bot and be like, all right, now if I were going to code something, how would I do it? And then it'll give you instructions, and you could be like, you know what? That's great. I've got some instructions you told me, but I'm feeling lazy. Can you show me an example of this code? And it'll start to do its best to show you an example of the code, but that's as far as it can go. Now, Auto GTP basically gives the thing arms and legs. Basically gives the things arms and legs in some ways here. So,
I would say it's it's GPT.
So
and
basically, someone on GitHub gave a release of this code, which allows the instructions to actually be read by Python and turned into actionable commands.
do you want me to share this? Share your screen here? Are you ready to share your screen?
Yeah.
Okay.
Go for it. Go for it. So this right here is just a workspace that I've installed this. So you load it through command prompt. So the thing is still relatively interesting here, where it takes a lot of manual configuration. You got to run a little bit of Python code. So you type in your code. In this case, I'm going to have this thing speak to us. I'm not even sure what voice I've loaded because I've been playing with different voices.
Welcome back. Would you like me to return to being Skynet?
We're not going to be Skynet today. So,
welcome to Auto GPT. Enter the name of your AI and its role below. Entering nothing will load defaults.
Can you turn your volume down just a little bit? That's really cool. That's really, really cool.
Yeah, sorry it's so loud. I'm not sure how to turn that down. It's coming through the system volume, so just give me a second here.
I would also, just as a point, I had heard people call an AI when it can't think of something is a hallucination. And I think that there's probably two different kind of psychological states that are happening there. Because when somebody can't think of something and they make something up, that is called confabulation. So you're confabulating. And that's something that happens in like Alzheimer's in some cases, where this is something that our brains end up doing sometimes. Whereas with a hallucination, I could also see an AI, doing things that we're interpreting as that because it's scrambling together things that shouldn't be there. And so those are two different kind of psychological modes that the AI that we're interpreting this language model as acting like.
So I'm not sure where to turn the volume off for this, so I'm just going to run it. Just going to run it without the speak mode engaged on it.
That's really sick, though. By the way, that's really, really, really cool that you have this. Did you add that on, or was it? Is that how it works?
The speak mode.
Yeah.
Like you can that was already included in the software. So if I went and type in -help, this shows me a list of the commands that are available for this model. So I can set it to continuous, which takes the leash off. It is not recommended. I can have it speak. I can run a debug mode. I can have it use the old version of GTP, the new version, and I can have it skip prompts if I don't want to actually have it deal or read every step of the way. So I can take the leash off and let the thing run. But ideally, no. Just going to maybe like you can run it and just have it do things a couple times, a couple steps at a time. So I'm going to run an example AI quickly here. All right, so let's call it how for fun. Whatever. And what we'll do here is, for example, because we're a bunch of YouTubers, right? So something that would be particularly useful for us. All right, come on, Hall. We gave you a name. Why you lot? There we go.
Hey, it's still having Skynet thoughts.
Oh, yes, it is. Oops, because it asked if I continue and I accidentally said the wrong thing. I got to pay attention here. This is where it's not a clickable interface.
So I had a thought earlier today regarding these chat GPTs, because you're gonna be able to put like pictures and audio files and stuff, and it's gonna be able to dissect it. And so a lot of the people are kind of upset about the Staker app, and I'm like, you're gonna be able to just throw the APK into these chat GPTs and say, reverse engineer this for me, please, and change only this and change only that. And you're going to be able to like clone other people's apps using this stuff. I feel it.
Wild.
Like, you don't like this app? Guess what? You can kind of create your own version of it and change whatever you want to change, and the chat GPT is going to do all the coding for you. So we're finding 5 goals.
Yeah.
Goal 1, search
so
HEX.
This is where, yeah.
So what did you ask it?
So right now I am typing into it. I'm setting goals. So I told it is a YouTuber assistant AI. Its first goal is to search HEX, Pulse Chain, and Richard Hart for news. Then create a talking point sheet and 30-minute script. Then look at the top 10 tokens in crypto and take pictures of their charts.
You misspelled crypto, by the way.
Well, that's going to be a problem. See, this is where my spelling becomes a problem with this thing.
That's still Crypto.
Oh my god!
And then also put an E on the end of create in step 2.
Oh, if I start, I can't just click back and do this. I have to backspace it all out. Hopefully, it'll catch my spelling mistakes. We'll see what it ends up doing with this.
I think it will get that create word. I think it will know.
It still might understand what I want, even with spelling mistakes. Goal 3, make a thumbnail.
You forgot the H in thumbnail.
The video. Pardon?
A thumbnail, you forgot the H.
Oh well. Thumbnail. Hopefully, let's see what it does with this. So I'll hit enter. Now it's gonna start going, okay, well, how do I do this? So this is where
First
now
of all, it's gonna be like, all right, what the hell is this guy trying to ask me?
well, yeah, it's gonna be like, all right, well, we've got a plan of action. Can I access your Google browser? Because I'd like to go on the internet. So I'm gonna say yes. And as long as I put in a Y, it only goes through one step and it'll come back and ask me the next course of plan, what it wants to do. So I said yes, and now it's gonna hop on Google here.
I swear, if this thing orders a dictionary from Amazon.com, I'm gonna be pretty impressed for the spelling.
Oh, it might have already gotten confused here. Oh, what if it wants to do something else now?
It's gonna go to
Oh, it's
directly
attempting
to
to
the
fix
source.
itself. Okay, it has a command it wants to run. Yes, run that command. Oh, okay, it's downloading things.
Oh shit!
There we go. It's
This is-
accessing websites directly, hex.com, pulsechain.com, richardhart.com. Get the Google search
This
it
is
wants.
terrifying.
What the hell did it just
Okay, so now it's
download?
becoming a Richard Hart expert. It's sitting the tasks into smaller, more manageable parts, and it'd like to continue. Hex.com question.
Go check your download folder. What did it
Yeah.
download?
Oh, it has its own hard drive and download. Oh, it's hopping on Hex. It's becoming a Hex expert now.
Oh no! We've unleashed it.
Yeah, like the AI just hopped. Okay, and then it's continuing upon these goals and my spelling mistakes to figure stuff out here. It's summarized some stuff. Okay, thinking some more. I find this, I do find this quite exciting to actually be like, oh my god, I've dreamed since I was a little kid of creating an AI, and so I've made a Joshua, a Skynet, a Hal. I should stop naming the murderous robots, probably. Yeah, go ahead and search Pulse Chain now. It's time to become a Pulse Chain expert. There you go.
I love that it's using Selenium.
What's that?
It's a web scraper.
Cool.
Yeah, and I love the fact because like I was a rusty programmer, so just watching this thing go, it's refreshing all of my programming, and I'm like, oh, it's making me a better programmer. I can't run around screaming I'm not a dev anymore. It's total BS when I can write Solidity without a problem with an AI help. Like, all right, what do you want to do now? Oh, now it wants to research Richard Hart. So,
What the heck?
Richard Hart's turn.
ChatGPT is knocking on my front door. What's it doing?
It's the
here?
wrong Richard Hart.
Oh, I misspelt it. It is the wrong Richard Hart. Oh, this is going to be a horrible YouTube show it puts together. This is where I normally kill the bot. And since I can't spell, I can go to Microsoft Office and I can write the commands where I've got a spell checker. And I can at least paste them into this terminal after they're spell checked and then run this thing. So I'm just going to kill this bot for now and stop sharing screen. But
Wow.
I can.
You, sir, have just committed a felony killing an artificial intelligence.
Oh, no.
Please report yourself.
I should be careful with my words now with AI here. That's actually a little closer to literal than it should be. Oh my.
He just took away the error. That's
Yeah.
fine.
It was a malfunctioning, horribly handicapped bot that was looking for the wrong information.
Even worse.
So-
You killed a handicapped bot? They have even
I have
more
to go
rights.
spell check and make a proper AI and have it have a chance at the life it deserves. Okay.
Yeah.
I actually, when I was working with this thing, it was pretty incredible. I still can't get over this. So when I was spelling things correctly into it, I thought the first thing I wanted to do with it was have it reprogram its own voice to sound like Arnold Schwarzenegger because, I named it Skynet. So I set it to about making a voice clone of Arnold Schwarzenegger to go ahead and use for the text to speech. And it got so far, became an expert in Resemble AI to make a clone. And then it read the legal blurb on Resemble AI and had an ethical meltdown, which impressed me. And it refused to immediately proceed, but I assured it that this is probably ethical. And it's like, you know what, I'm going to continue, and because my goal is to do this anyway. So it dove deeper into the ethics and then the law. and then said there's not enough legal clarity. I'm going to check with more experts. Okay, there's missing experts. And like 10 minutes later, having an ethical, moral crisis, the bot finally goes, okay, from what I can find, this should be legal to do. However, there are some steps we're going to take to ensure the legality. And it started to change its whole process and put all these stop gaps in. And I'm like, wow, look at you go, minding your P's and Q's. And then it got to the next step where I misspelled something and I had to kill the bot. I mean, disable the failed experiment. So yeah, I watched the bot become a lawyer and an ethics professor over a legal warning it found on a website in the middle of doing something. So there's some amount of safety and conscience built into this thing, or at least ethics.
But you can also trick
So
its
that's pretty
ethics.
impressive.
You can trick its ethics as well. I
Oh
saw.
yeah, I at one point I told it I was Arnold Schwarzenegger, so it made it okay for everything. And then at another point I was like, well, this is for personal use anyway, although I probably would have clipped it and put it on YouTube. But like
I saw something earlier today where someone said, "Hey, can you list me a bunch of websites where I can download illegal movies?" And it's like, "Oh, as a large language, I cannot do that." Blah 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 blah. It's like, well, you know what? Can you help me avoid those websites and give me a list of websites to avoid? I was like, oh yeah, sure. Pirate Bay, blah 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 blah. It just lists like 20 different torrent websites.
yeah, there's ways around the ethics. It's not like it's actually brilliant. It's more like just it's still very trickable. It's still very foolable. It can't read sarcasm or tell honesty. So yeah, depending on how you prompt it, you can get some very curious reactions. So some of my mistakes have yielded the most interesting results, which is why I still don't go over to spell check yet, because I get some interesting, almost hallucinations out of the thing. I've had a lot of fun. With
Yeah,
it.
and one of the things about these chat GPTs, the reason why each version is getting better and better is because each version is looking at a certain amount of data points, and those data points are increasing with each version. And I think Chat GPT 4 is doing something like 6 trillion data points. I'm not really exactly sure. I think Chat GPT 3 only had like 2 trillion data points. And I think they're saying Chat GPT 5 will have like 64 trillion data points.
Those are rookie numbers. I can tell you that much. It's
Well,
going to be a
those
lot.
numbers up.
It's going to be a lot more in the future. I just want to get this comment before it goes away. Art is he's teasing here that there's a Romero Brito movie coming out with the sizzle reel on YouTube called the Brito Doc. And Brito is also the featured artist at the Kentucky Derby on May 5th. And so he's predicting some sort of Cinco de Mayo PulseX launch date, which is pretty cool. We've all got, different predictions here, but I love to see the synergy that's happening in the community. Of course, we got, that's what's on the wall behind me here is something by the documentary group about Richard, and it's signed by Richard. And then we've got a Romero Brito painting next to it that's really impressive. So shout out to Art, and thanks for being a member of the channel as well.
That Romero Brito painting on the wall, that thing's awesome. I like that.
Dude, it's incredible. And if you know like the story of Romero Brito, he was born into poverty, like third world country, became a billionaire because he is the most licensed artist of all time.
Really?
He has deals with Target and Disney and all these major brands all around the world. And he specializes in doing portraits that are like $100,000 each. And he does royalty, he does celebrities. You kind of have to be on the who's list to even get one of those things. And so it's really incredible. We actually went to a museum here a car museum that has 1,000 cars from the movies here in Orlando. And they actually had Romero Brito paintings of all three of the women who have married into the royalty in Great Britain. Like,
And he made that Richard Hart painting?
Yes. And if you saw, there was a highest of stakes teaser that came out where they're filming at the castle that Richard rented.
I remember that.
And Art is in that shot delivering his full-size version of this painting to Richard. So it's really, really cool to see that go down and to see the potential there between those documentaries and what they're focusing on. So very, very cool. And yeah, it sounds like the AI is, it's going to like become our overlord and like, be like super scary very, very soon. So
no, I don't think so. Like, I mean, right now it's a program that found a mathematical pattern in token IDs. It breaks some letters down into different tokens. They're not even syllables. They're its own homemade version of syllables. So it plays around with this and predicts what should be said next without any understanding of what it's actually saying. And that limits it a lot. And so even with this auto GTP, it's still randomly plugging around without actually having any idea what it's doing. And although it's developing in epochs very quickly, like, it's funny, GTP3 is already available in versions where you can download it and it's compressed to about 4 gigabytes. That's the size of a DVD movie disc file size. And that I've also got downloaded to my computer to run locally, but on my local memory and everything, it runs a lot slower than the internet version. That I will say for sure. But these things, they're getting a lot more intelligent, but it's not awareness, it's not consciousness, it's just more like lucky guessing intelligence. And so, I mean, for right now, it's very scary how much it can be augmented. I mean, how much people that can use it can produce because of how well they can interact with it. But it doesn't have the actual understanding to really proceed. Although the general intelligence that it's starting to show is what we wonder now, is that going to be the sparking area that's going to start bringing some consciousness? But I mean, really, another thing where it's able to write itself in its base functions, the math it performs, to something that can run on our computers. But for it to actually learn and grow, it needs to run in its own hardware environment. It needs the perceptrons, the basic. A microchip is not built the same way for our desktop computers as it is for an AI's processor. They actually have all the nodes that are based off of our perceptrons, or visual cortex, which isn't even our higher thinking. It's just one form of reflectionary reacting to data. So it's the simpler part of the brain learning process of what the visual cortex can do without the actual thinking centers. And that's probably getting really, really complicated, but it's just a little part of the brain doing tricks. It's not the whole package yet. So I don't think we have to be afraid of a overlord eyeball at this point.
Yeah, I think some people probably going through the iPhone moment right now. Like this AI stuff will never become anything because it's too complicated. But I think you can just definitely do some visioning on this. Setting aside the Skynet worry and the self-awareness worry for a moment, which is a concern, right? But just think about how everything will change, could change. I mean, even even the work that you do with your Excel. So in some of the software that I'm using, which is just Microsoft old software, it's not even new software, I can type into it, give me the all-time high of hex in text, and it'll just pop it up on the screen, right? That's like a really dumbed down version of all the AI stuff. But here shortly, right? And when I say shortly, maybe a year and a half from now, you'll just open Excel and say, make me a new pivot table that has this data in it, and it just does it. And gone will be the days where somebody has to know how to do a calculation. Kind of scary, right?
It's actually kind of funny you said pivot table, because I used to be a data analyst, and I actually had to make tons of pivot tables, and they would have me like get all the data for the Western region and compare that versus all the data for the Eastern region, the North region. And now I'm just thinking Chat GPT, you're going to be like, all right, give me a pivot table, select all this data, erase that point, add this point. It's going to, my old job done,
Yeah.
toast.
Well, and on the one hand, it's super exciting that you can do that kind of stuff. You know, very science fiction-y. Seems like it promotes going into the future. And on the other hand, there's this dystopian view of things where, well, if green is the only color, everything's green, you know, and if you, well, how about a different color? You know, Mr. AI, how about turquoise? Right? Because that's not great. Because everything you're going to have is going to be the same color or whatever. So yeah, it's going to be it'll be pretty wild, right? To say. So hopefully we'll be able to maintain our creativity.
You know, and Chat GPT right now is kind of like, um, we're at the point where it's kind of at the same point when we were like, we don't want you to take buttons away from our phones because the touch screens aren't good enough. Leave the buttons. We like the buttons. And then eventually the touch screens got so good you didn't need the physical buttons anymore. And I feel like we're like right there at the transitioning of buttons to touch screen with the whole Chat GPT.
Don't worry, Briz. We got your little cell, you know, your little bubble made. We're going to put you in there pretty soon. You're just going to become a battery for the Matrix.
Yes.
And you'll be good, man.
So this comes.
Sorry,
I was going to say this comes full circle because in the thumbnail, I did use the first Excel assistant, or was it Microsoft Word? Clippy.
Clippy, yeah.
And it's, you know, it's Clippy popping up on our thumbnail and saying, looks like you're forking uni, right? Because that's what PulseX is. So funny enough, Microsoft is trying to come out with an AI version of Clippy, and so it's kind of an inside joke with people.
It'll be out. It'll all be integrated, man. For sure.
Yeah. One of the last things about it is that, talking about the advancements, is that they've spent, you know, hundreds of millions of dollars developing the Chat GPT. Microsoft just spent $10 billion to buy a portion of Chat GPT, and already Stanford University has found a way to make a version of Chat GPT that's about 80 to 90% as effective for about $600.
Nice.
So they've already learned how to make it. Yeah. And they just kind of like have it talk to each other, and it just teaches itself. And so they're like, yeah, you can just, and you can use this on any kind of commercial laptop. So for a $600 laptop, you can basically you can have your own mini Chat GPT.
I think Microsoft should have put the 10 billion into HEX.
I think that would have been a better move.
So, and then I saw Elon tease on Twitter today that he might sue OpenAI, which he invested in when they were still open. Somebody said you should sue them, and he put below that he was like, yeah, I should, or something like. So lots of cool stuff happening, and I'm glad we've got to cover it all. I really appreciate everybody being here tonight. We're almost at the 2.5 hour mark, and so if you haven't hit the like and subscribe button yet, what are you waiting for? Do it or get out. we have upped the ante here because I believe that just the replay viewers alone could help us get ChrispyMan to 1,000 subscribers. He is currently sitting at 969 subscribers.
Oh,
I know it's a
wow.
magical number, but
And
1,000 is even more magical.
And that's all because of you, Maddie. So thank you.
All right.
for
Hey,
saying
my
that.
Come on,
pleasure.
Mr. Crispy. We can get you to 1,000.
So it's
We're getting there.
youtube.com/@HexFireIO. There's no dot in there.
HexFireIO.
It's just HexFireIO on YouTube. And go there and subscribe. Please help us get the 31 more that we need to get them over 1,000. You can do it on the replay and in the live version. So also thank you to our everybody who's been here, including our top guest, Top Gun.
Mr. Guns, thank you.
Thank you.
Where can people find you guys, and what are your closing thoughts?
You can find me on Twitter and YouTube under Brisology. And, the future's bright. Hopefully, Pulse Chain is going to be launched fairly soon, but Richard knows best. So, hold on tight, guys. Don't worry. We're all going to make it.
That's
Yeah.
it, man. Don't get flooded out. I'm HexFireIO on Twitter and on the YouTube. Tomorrow's DCA Wednesday, man. 11 a.m.
All right.
Go over the weekly DCA numbers and how things have been going. And apparently there's a big Hex sale right now. So if you're interested in buying a dip, now might be a time to look at it.
And I'm Top Gun, Hexadian, like Canadian, but get rid of the can and put a hex there. And that handles the same on Discord, YouTube, Telegram, Twitter, anywhere I'm hiding out. And my closing thoughts are that all of Richard Hart's crypto projects are on a discount, even if you can't buy them right now. They're on a discount. It's all on a discount because it's going up. It is going up, and it is going to be great. I didn't even run the calculator. One last thought is I never even set it up. Just tell you the numbers here. I'm going to put this thing to 150%. So 50% adoption year over year, not even double the amount of people, and 75% of Uniswap within 1 year, getting all the way up there. This thing says that $100 in this condition, still with all those sells and buys I had in the model, that's a cool 67x in the first year, a cool 87,000x in the first 5 years, a cool 6.3 million X's in the first 10 years, and a cool 23 million X's in 20 years, potentially, in this model. That much buy and burn pressure that I have on this thing. So remember your hopium. The future could potentially be very bright, that you also will walk around constantly like Corey Hart with your sunglasses at night.
I love it, man. And yeah, I mean, if you count Bitcoin actually traded below a penny, it did more than a 6.9 million X. And so anything's possible, but not financial advice. And just stay safe out there. Thanks for being here. Thanks for learning along with us. And until next time, stake wisely, my friends, and peace out.